occasions I've had the opportunity to watch television, both nationally and primarily in foreign countries. And I see little kids going to the river or creek, to try to get some water, something that's as important and as natural and as needed as WATER. Additionally, in other countries, and sometimes that same country, I see one spigot, where the whole village has to go with buckets and haul water to their tents or wherever they are living. And oftentimes, we as Americans, and particularly Central Georgians, don't realize the value of water. We take it for granted, and it's such an important resource. So today, we have somebody with us who's running for the Macon Water Authority in the person of Mr. Dwight Jones. This is a call to action.
A call to action.
I'm your host, Alex Habersham, and I'm very, very happy to be able to interview Dwight, not necessarily from a political perspective, but because he has been, I'm probably too old. I don't want his comrades to think that he's as old as I am, so I won't call him a friend. I'll call him an associate. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll say that his dad was my friend, of course, Charlie Jones, and his family has made a phenomenal contribution to this community, both from an economic, a nonprofit, and an educational and a civic perspective. So I'm just happy to have you here, to not only let you talk about, your candidacy for the Water Authority, but also to thank you publicly, thank your family publicly for what you all did for this community. So just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, that's quite an introduction, Alex, and I greatly appreciate it. And I appreciate our relationship. As you mentioned, we go back a long way. I'll keep our ages out of this for both of our benefit, but needless to say, neither one of us are spring chickens anymore. But I've been a native-born Maconite my whole life. I did a short stint back then. College was 4 years, or at least that's what my father told me it should take, in Athens, Georgia, and literally moved back here to Macon after that. Started working with my father and actually some of my siblings at the time, and met a nice young lady shortly thereafter, Tracy now Jones, that she went to Mercer Law School, practiced here in Macon for a while, actually practiced with Virgil Adams for a while, and before we started getting the children and that kind of thing. And we've lived here our whole lives. Again, I married above myself, and she's been a fantastic mother. We have 3 sons. The oldest is in college at the University of Kentucky, and the baby is a 7th grader as well, and they're into athletics and all that good stuff, so we're traveling around doing that quite often. And in the meantime, I've been very privileged to be involved in several private businesses here in town, some starting, operating those for some years, and also being involved in quite a few boards, be it nonprofit, profit, in different capacities, both here in Macon, in the state, and actually a few nationally. So I've enjoyed being, I think, a servant is the best way to describe that. And having done that kind of behind the scenes in a private way, some folks encouraged me some time ago to look at doing that now as a public servant. And so here I find myself today with a scant few days before this either ends promptly or maybe it might be the start of something new.
Right. Okay, now talk about the position for which you are running, and talk about, oftentimes, Dwight, people don't realize the impact and the role that the Water Authority, in this community plays from an economic and other employment and other perspectives. And I'm sure that most people agree that it's kind of on an even keel. So, I mean, what is your vision for the Water Authority? And talk a little bit about why it's important.
That's a great question, and I'll do my best, Alex. Well, we've got a unique situation here in Bibb County. When you look at a lot of municipalities across the United States, what's very common is for their water sewer operation to be part of city government. And without elaborating very much, what that often leads to is an infrastructure that's dilapidated, that's not repaired. The purpose of the city, frankly, is to use the revenues from customers to keep other city departments afloat.
Right.
And so our city fathers, in their infinite wisdom, in fact, Mr. Pinkston, I believe, was the one that was instigating it in the early 70s, set up an authority. And so an authority is a quasi-governmental entity that has individuals that are elected to public office, just like you would have in any other thing.
Right.
But they are charged with governing that operation, number one. And number two, the proceeds of that operation, again, it needs to make a profit, are reinvested to keep it strong.
Right.
So, in the case of Duke County, we've been very, very fortunate. Mr. Frank Amerson, I think a lot of people will know that name, was just fantastic in his vision and leadership for the Water Authority, including getting us what is into now the Amerson Water Treatment Plant.
Right, right. And I want you to talk a little bit about that also.
I will. And so, having said all that, the Water Authority is very, very important in number one, providing good, clean, safe water here in Bibb County, doing so at a very effective rate.
Right.
The Water Authority is actually, Alex, in the bottom 20% cost structure of the state. And you look just 80 miles up the road here in Atlanta, the water cost up there, I think, is $6 per cubic foot per month.
Wow.
And it's out of sight. So we're very fortunate. I know that there's some cost structure issues that I've learned with constituents along the campaign trail that need to be looked at. But overall, it's very, very effective.
Right.
And so, having said that, the way the Water Authority is composed is districts that are around the county. Historically, it's my understanding those mimicked the old county commission districts, if you will, before consolidation.
Right.
And out of that, then you have one at-large position, which is the chairmanship. And then there was typically before an appointee from the city council and an appointee from the county. And now with consolidated government, it's of course 2 individuals from the county. So they are charged with governing the Water Authority, and they have one employee, if you will, which in this case is Tony Rojas, and he's the president of the Macon Water Authority. And then of course he is charged with actually operating the authority, running the actual business, the employees, and then reporting back and being accountable to the board. So that's how it works. And when you look at economic development, I believe was one of the questions that you had. You know, water, I think on our Facebook we just did a post about, that was in Forbes magazine just in the last month, about how water is getting now to be such a critical issue. And you open your comments about how it is even in developing countries, that major corporations now have individuals charged with considering what their water situation will be long-term. For example, Coca-Cola has somebody up here in Atlanta that looks at what do we do about water long-term. Nestle Corporation, that's just Anheuser-Busch, just a few that I can recall. And so water, with our population growth worldwide, has already become a problem. It's going to be a problem. And there are some that predict that when you consider precious metals, oil, things like this, that water in the long term.
Right now with it,
yeah, it may even be more.
Right.
You know, and so it is a
Because
problem.
we can't live without it.
No, you really can't. And so some of our problem here in Bibb County, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but just in the course of this campaign, we don't have that problem. You know, we have water in abundance. It's good, clean, affordable water. It actually was named back in 2010 the best tasting water in the country, United States, which hardly anybody knows. We ought to have a sign out on the interstate or something, right? And again, being that it's affordable, being that it's readily available, I think there's an expectation about that. But we just don't have a clue what the lack of water is in other parts of this country, much less the world, and what the cost of that is.
Right.
So, you know, with the Water Authority, it has been governed very well. And certainly that was not all to Frank Amerson's credit, but a large part of it was.
Right.
And in his passing, I think as a lot of people know, Kirby Gossie has been generous to step in the interim and has done a very effective job. But the mistake we as a community can make is to make the assumption, as you kind of alluded to earlier, hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But just because it has been run well, let's just say the last 20, 30 years, does not automatically mean it will continue to do so. So the Water Authority is at a transitional stage. We're going to have, come Tuesday night, a new chairperson. Potentially, we might have a new candidate in District 2, I believe, which is next door to us, maybe not. And then in District 3, we hopefully will have a new candidate, or at least on to the next phase. And so we're going to have a transition in governance and leadership there. And, that's going to be something new. I mean, talking with Mr. Rojas, he's very optimistic about it, whoever wins. But you can understand when you're the director, if you will, of that organization, and you have 2 or 3 new bosses, that's a little bit different. So I'm excited about the prospects of it. I do think that the Water Authority's foundation is very, very good. I will tell you that as far as issues that we have seen along the campaign trail that we want to focus on with our constituents, one is obviously making sure that our supply of water continues to be sufficient, and it is. At this time, based on studies they've done, we've got an abundant water supply through 2050.
Wow.
And again, I'll come back to the Amerson water plant, treatment plant shortly. But we want to make sure that remains in force. We want to make sure that the water is cost effective for our constituents. There has to be a balance. The Water Authority has to have obviously a profitable scenario to where they can reinvest in the infrastructure, but they also need to make sure that it's affordable to our citizens, particularly those that are on fixed income, number one. Number 2 is job creation. And you alluded to that a little bit earlier. Now, how does the Water Authority impact that? Well, we have different entities here in Bibb County that are in charge with economic development, as you well know. The MEDC, you got the Industrial Authority, you got the Urban Development Authority, Chamber of Commerce. All these are charged with going out and producing jobs in our community. Well, the Water Authority can do that through direct financial incentives, which it already does. It has a relationship with, as a revolving fund with the Industrial Authority for infrastructure development. It can also do that in obviously providing the infrastructure being water and sewer, but providing it in abundance. And, as I've said throughout the campaign, we've done job creation here in Bibb County of recent. For example, one that's often touted is Tractor Supply. It's fantastic, the number of jobs it provided, but a lot of those jobs are minimum wage type jobs, Alex. And certainly with unemployment community, we want to get that lower, but my interest is more in us trying to seek out more middle class job producing providers. And you'll remember, as a lifelong resident here, Brown and Williamson.
Right.
And I'm trying to remember back before they left, even in the 80s, what was minimum wage there? $20 maybe back in the 80s?
Yeah,
or close to it. What would it be today?
Right.
And you think about what it did here in our community in all facets, housing, retail, everything else. And it's a testament to our community that actually with Brown and Williamson's departure that we've done as well as we have.
Right.
But my interest would be in seeing us try and reach out to those type employers, bring them to the county, and create more prosperity in our county for everybody. And then the last thing is we have an aging,
You got 2 minutes.
aging sewer system. We're having spills. Some of our residents have been upset with how we've handled that. And you might remember we actually came up several weeks ago with a spill notification plan. I won't go into details of that. It's available on our website and our Facebook page. But we feel like the Water Authority needs to be more proactive in how it communicates with its citizenry when there is a sewer spill.
Right.
I mean, obviously, as a parent and a pet owner, coming in contact with raw sewage is not acceptable under any circumstances. So lastly, Water Amerson Treatment Plant, in 1994 flood, you remember it was quite a disaster. We were without water in areas of the community for up to 6 weeks. Mr. Amerson predominantly sought out the area of the Town Creek Reservoir now, worked with the board, with the federal grants and whatnot to produce one of the state-of-the-art facilities. I don't know if you've had a chance to go.
I have not, and I do want to mention, you need to talk a little bit about it very quickly. And isn't it possible to have tours? I know they do fishing, and talk a little bit about that.
They absolutely do, and that's a great part when we talk about the Water Authority that's not touted enough, which is there's a recreational component. And so the Town Creek Reservoir is nearly 6 billion gallons. It's over 500 surface acres of water. And they do allow fishing there at various points and times during the year and at various hours, all of which is available on the Water Authority website. Also, the plant itself out there is just an engineering marvel. It really, really is. And they do tours. Again, you can go on their website to find out how and when that's conducted. They also do, for Bibb County education, tours for the children out there as well.
Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on. and you have certainly enlightened us as it relates to the importance of water and the continuation of our doing very well in the community. I want to encourage everybody, you know, to kind of not take water for granted. And one of the best kept secrets, although he knows it, but we probably got is the best location in the southeast from a water perspective.
Amen. Amen.
And so those of you who got cousins or anybody who's interested in locating somewhere,
Yeah.
water is important. You want to tell them to give Central Georgia a look. This is a call to action.
A call to action.
I'm your host, Alex Habersham, having interviewed my friend and compatriot and a candidate for the Macon Water Authority District 3,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dwight Jones. Thank you very much, and you're a fine young man, and I'm sure that in whatever endeavor in which you are engaged, you'll do a phenomenal job. Thank you so much
Alex.
for being on the show.
Yes, sir.
This is a call to action.
A call to action.
I'm your host, Alex Habersham. Have a great day.